Dr. Melanie Joy. I'm a psychologist. I'm author of the book Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. I'm also author of the books Strategic Action for Animals, and my new book is Beyond Beliefs, a guide to improving relationships and communication for vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters. And I'm also the founding president of the organization Beyond Carnism and the co-founder of the organization ProVeg. I'm American, but I live in Berlin, Germany. I became vegetarian, and then I became vegan. I became vegetarian after I got sick from eating a contaminated hamburger, and I was disgusted by meat, so I just stopped eating meat. But then it was when I was learning about my new diet and how to cook vegetarian foods that I stumbled across information about animal agriculture, and I was really shocked and horrified by it. And I'm sure I had been exposed to that information before, but I probably was just not open to it because I was eating animals in the process. So I just decided at that point I didn't want to be a part of that. What happens to the animals, the violence was so extensive and so overwhelming. What happens to the environment, what was happening to my body as a consequence of eating these products was more than enough to convince me not to eat animals again. And later on I learned about the dairy industry, which is one of the most brutal of all of the animal agriculture industries, and stopped eating dairy as well. It's really hard to find one best thing. I mean, as a psychologist, I look at a lot of things through the lens of psychology, and I feel more, my work is on the psychology of eating animals, and being vegan now, living in alignment with my values, I feel a certain empowerment that I'm thinking more rationally than I was before when I was eating animals. It was totally against my value system to do that. And I had no idea that I was using so much psychological energy to distort my perceptions and to numb my natural empathy for animals in order to eat them. So I think psychologically, I just feel a tremendous amount of freedom. I feel like I'm thinking more clearly and clearly making more rational and compassionate choices. I feel much better ethically, and physically I'm healthier today at the age of 51 than I was when I was half my age. And I know that this is in large part due to my diet. I think about Patrick Bubonian. I don't know if people know who he is, but he's one of the world's strongest men. He's huge, he's a big bodybuilder, and he actually put it really nicely. He said, and he's totally vegan and a total plant-based diet, and he said, the idea that we have to eat animals' muscles in order to build muscles ourselves is like the idea that we have to eat animals' brains to get smart. And so it's a very understandable question when people say, where do you get your protein? And it's also very interesting for me as a vegan who's well aware that protein is readily available in plant foods, and that's cleaner, healthier protein that actually helps us to build our muscles even more efficiently. This idea that we have to eat animals in order to be healthy or in order to survive is surprising to me, simply because there's just, at this point, the evidence is really indisputable. There is so much literature on the benefits of a plant-based diet, and the debate around whether to eat a vegan diet or not is really not about whether you can be healthy on a vegan diet today. It's more about, is a vegan diet the healthiest of all possible diets you could ever try? But it's very clear that, we have millions of long-lived vegans who are very often healthier. Research has demonstrated healthier than people who are non-vegans, so disproving this point. So that's always an interesting question, or defense that I've heard. In this one of the reasons this question arises is because carnism, this ideology, the dominant belief system that conditions us to eat certain animals, the opposite of veganism, is institutionalized. So when people study nutrition, they actually study carnistic nutrition. So when we're thinking inside that box, we're not thinking without a bias, and therefore we're not thinking objectively. I don't know if if going vegan changed my perception of life, or if my perception of life changed and therefore I went vegan. But it is being vegan. It's not all of who I am. It's a part of who I am, and it's a reflection of my belief that relating to others in a healthy way. Healthy relationships are relationships that respect the dignity of other individuals, humans and non-humans. And so that's really my perspective on life is, how, and I think one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves, how can I move through my life and make choices in my day-to-day life that respect the dignity of others around me and of myself, meaning that respect, their inherent worth, and treat them as the way that I would want to be treated, or I imagine I would want to be treated in their position. And this applies to the humans in my life as well as to the non-human individuals in the world. Probably just that veganism was even an option. When I was growing up, nobody ever asked me if I wanted to eat animals, or if I believed in eating animals, or how I felt about eating animals. No one ever encouraged me to reflect on this daily practice that had such profound ethical dimensions and personal implications. Eating animals was just the way things are. And so I just moved through my life unconsciously, making choices without even realizing I was making choices that were completely against who I want to be in this world, against my values and against the kind of person I want to be in this world. So I really just wish that I had known earlier that there was an option not to eat animals. There was another way to be. I definitely think the future is vegan. I think if we look at veganism as a social justice movement, which it is in many ways, and we look at other social justice movements and how they've evolved and the trajectory the vegan movement is on right now, it's very clear that eventually, to me, it seems very clear from a psychological perspective and from a sociological perspective that veganism will replace carnism one day as the dominant belief system. It's just a question of whether, not a question of when, not a question of whether. I was in Denmark, I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago now, for the release of my book here when it came out in Danish, Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs and Wear Cows. And coming back this time, I was amazed to see the change in vegan options. I was amazed. I just remember the last time I was in Copenhagen airport, I couldn't eat. I mean, I did eat. I ate a little piece of bread and I had a juice from Joe in the juice or whatever. But this time, it's like a completely different city from what I remember, at least in terms of the ability to eat vegan. So yeah, so I want to say, like, to the Danish vegans, thank you for your amazing work. Obviously what you're doing is working and is making a difference for the animals. And so I know you have a march coming up on September 1st this year. That's really exciting, and it seems like it's a good time to be doing that. So yeah, thank you for doing that, and I don't think I'll be in this part of the world then, but I would love to see it, and I hope to see it on Facebook, and I'm excited to hear that it's happening, and it's just another confirmation that times are changing, and they're changing in the way we need them to. So I'm excited to hear that.